Hello everyone, I am Buck WSR Weezer, putting the do into do-it-yourself. My do-it-yourself project today is once again here with the 1998 Bounder motorhome. Our project today is more of a mechanical nature. I'm going to replace the two drive belts. Yes, plural belts, there's two of them, accessory belts. And I don't think these belts have been changed. The ones on there are original, and this is about 20 or so years old. So it's time to do that as a matter of good maintenance. Plus, long story, one of them broke on me on the road, and I had to fix it in a parking lot. So it's time to change both of them. Now this is built on a Ford chassis, and it's got the 460 cubic inch V8. Now that motor is put in a lot of motorhomes, RVs, heavy-duty trucks, and if it was in a pickup truck, for instance, it wouldn't be that big of a deal because you would just pop the hood and have easy access to it. As you can see here, though, in a motorhome, because of the way it's built and oriented, you can't access it from inside the hood. So this is really a little bit more challenging because we'll have to access it through the doghouse, the engine compartment inside. But even then it will be a challenge to reach. So we've got the doghouse open. And also we'll have to do some of our work by crawling under the RV. But more on that. I wanted to bring you over here and show you, I'm going to put you up on the tripod and show you the manual just to get an overview of the project. So you can see here we've got it's showing us two belts. Belt 1 I've outlined here in pink, belt 2 in green. Now so one's an inner belt and one's outer. Belt number 2 is closer to the engine block, and the belt number 1 is the one further. Both of the belts go around the crankshaft pulley and the water pump. So you can see in the picture that you've got sort of a double pulley on on the crankshaft and the water pump. And then belt number 1, let's see, belt number 1, which is the outer belt, crankshaft pulley, water pump, alternator, and the secondary air pump. Whereas belt number 2, again, crankshaft pulley, water pump pulley, power steering pump, air conditioning, AC compressor, and then a spring-loaded tensioner. So we're going to replace both belts. Now the interesting thing about this is tension on the belts is brought about in two different ways. For belt number 1, the alternator is on a pivot, so you tighten the alternator down, keeping the right tension on the belt. But belt number 2 has the spring-loaded tensioner that keeps the right tension on the belt. I've picked up the belts that we need, and here's belt number 1. It's the outer belt, part number 4060495. Inner belt, belt number 2, part number 4060685. And the reason, as I've already hinted, that belt number 1 is not in the sleeve is because I had to install it already on the vehicle. So I broke down on the road, lost as a result the alternator for the charging system and the air pump. But the RV still ran far enough to get me to the a parking lot. There was a auto parts store not far away. I ended up changing the belt out in the parking lot at Lowe's. So I know the job's not too terribly difficult if I can manage it in the parking lot. So this belt's already installed, but because it's the outer belt and I have to get to the inner belt, I'm going to have to take this new one off anyway to get to the old one. So that's what we're about to do. Like I told you already, it's going to be a challenge to get to, but it's not impossible. And I want to get a light out here so we can see better. Unfortunately, the reality of this is I may not be able to show you with a whole lot of clarity the steps involved in this process. But what I'm going to do first is move these intake hoses out of the way, move this air hose out of the way, and that will just give me a little more room to get my hands and arms down in there. So I'm going to go look for a drop light or something to light up that compartment, take off these two hoses, and then I'll come back with you and we'll walk through this project together. Alright, so to remove that first belt, the outer belt, its tension is held by the pivoting of the alternator, which is this guy down here. I know there's not much to see here. I got a light here. I'm going to show you as best I can what we're doing. But right down here is the alternator. It slides on this bracket. And on the other side of this is the bolt. It's a 1/2 inch bolt. I'm going to try to get it from up top here. And we also have to loosen, try to light that up for you down there. Right there in the middle of the screen is the mounting bolt for the alternator, so we have to loosen that one. I found it a little easier to get to that one by crawling under down there at the wheel well. So I'm going to loosen both of those. The alternator will then pivot so we can take the tension off that outer belt. You can see that outer belt there. In fact, you can read the word Continental on the belt because you know it's, like I told you, it's a new one, which I installed in the parking lot. So I'll loosen the alternator, take off that first belt, and that part will be done. Vehicle, I loosened the alternator. The new belt was really a lot tighter, not stretched out like the first one, so it was not easy to get this old belt, get this new belt on, and even now it's a little tight. Even with the alternator loose, it's hard to get it on there. I might have to try to get it with a screwdriver. I want to be careful not to mess it up. Pry it off a little bit here. As you can see, it's loose, but not so loose that it's coming off easily. And laying under the ground in the parking lot at Lowe's was a little challenging getting it on initially. But just wanted you to see it. It's still a little tight, even though the alternator is as loose as it can go. So, but I'll get it, and this one will be out of the way. So back here up at the top, I've got that first belt loose, and do need to route it over top of the fan to get it completely off. So once again, it's kind of a job where you're doing some from up top and then some from underneath. So that should be about it. You can go down and pull it down, and that one will be out of the way. All right, so you're looking down here at the belt tensioner. It's the spring-loaded belt tensioner right here. And then lower, you can see I got a 5/8 inch wrench on the pulley. And by lifting up on that wrench, moves this and takes the tension off of the belt. Over here is the AC compressor, and I'm going to try to attempt to pull up on the wrench, relieve the pressure, and then slide the belt off the top of the AC compressor. So that's going to be my approach. It'll require two hands. Not going to film it, but I'm just telling you and showing you what I plan to do to get it off. Okay, that worked just fine. Released the belt. Now, once again with this guy, we have to route it over top of the fan, like so, and then I'll crawl under and retrieve it from beneath. So, try to work this inner belt out. around the pulley, around the fan. Alright, there he is. This guy doesn't look that bad really. But chances are he's as original as the other one was, and we're going to change him out. So our removal of the old ones is complete. Now we install the new ones. Okay, so installation is the reverse of the removal. Here's the inner belt. I'm going to put that guy on first. Start by wrapping him around the fan, and then try to route it around the crankshaft pulley, the water pump pulley, AC compressor. What else is it? Air pump down there, and finally the spring-loaded tensioner pulley. Well, I hit a snafu in my installation. Here's the old belt, here's the new belt. Notice anything? The new belt's too long. So I would advise you to ignore the number that I gave you earlier. I'm going to have to figure it out again. This is apparently not the correct belt, and I have to put this project on pause so I can get the right one. Okay everybody, well it's been an interesting few days since we recorded that last segment, realizing that I had the wrong belt. And indeed I did, though when I look up by year, make, and model, a 97 Ford F53 with a 7.5 liter, this is the belt they tell me. But this one was clearly too long. Fortunately, when I removed the original belt that was on there, I was able to get the part number right on there. Motorcraft, and I've got it written right up here for you to see. Motorcraft F2 TD 8620BB. So that's real helpful. Except when I went online to try to find it, couldn't find it anywhere. Maybe Motorcraft doesn't make this belt anymore. I found one website that was selling with that part number an aftermarket belt, so I went ahead and bought it. And this was the D&D, let's see, D&D belt 590K6. Problem with this belt was it was too short. To me, it's not a good aftermarket substitute for this original Motorcraft. See, the original Motorcraft belt, this is 59.75 inches long. But this replacement belt, 59, is just 59 inches. It was too short. I could not install it, though I attempted to do so. It's about an inch too short. So then I thought, let's get 1 inch longer, and I picked up this, the 600K6. So this guy's not going to do it. Instead, we're going to go with the 600K6. This 6 is the number of ribs, and this 600 is 60.0 inches. That is going to match more closely to the original belt. So it's been a tad bit frustrating, actually. Now I got belts on hand that I don't need. But that's a tip for you if you're having trouble finding the original belt. I couldn't either. So let's get this 600K6 installed on the motorhome. Okay, so here's a little trick. Since I'm working by myself, don't have anybody under here to sort of hold the belt in place, the right spot here on this crank pulley. So I just used a piece of Gorilla Tape to hold it up, and that will help keep it in place while I work above to put it under the tensioner. And of course I'll remove the tape before I fire it up when we're done. So just a little tip when you're working by yourself. Well, while waiting for that new belt to arrive, I went ahead and did some other maintenance work. You can see those bright yellow spark plug wires. I put in new plugs, wires, distributor cap, rotor. So I tried to make use of the time while I was waiting and already had those parts on hand. So here's another tip for this belt, this inner belt that is held, the tension's held by the spring-loaded tensioner. I found this this long 1/2-inch ratchet with a 5/8 socket and a swivel head works really well for me in putting the in moving this tensioner pulley. So probably can't see a whole lot of what I'm doing, but that makes two of us. All right, so I've got it wrapped around the crankshaft pulley. I can see down here on the water pump pulley. I'm down here to my left. I can see that I'm around the power steering pump pulley correctly. I think I am. And so and I have it wrapped around the tensioner pulley, which you can't see. So the only remaining pulley for it to go around is the air conditioner compressor. So that's going to be the one I put on last as I pull up on the tensioner, on the ratchet. It's on the tensioner. Love it. Oh, I struggled so much with that other belt that was too short until I realized this is just not the right belt. So now I'm on. Can slowly release the tension on the tensioner, and that belt is in place. Now make sure, review it, make sure you're in the grooves of the pulley correctly in every spot. Take a look from below also, and I am going to go down and remove that piece of Gorilla Tape that I had holding the belt in place down low. And that will be the inner belt successfully installed. All that remains is to put on the outer belt and to tension it down with the alternator. Alright, so I got the second belt, the outer belt, in place. We're on a crankshaft, water pump, alternator, and air pump down lower. And now we're going to put tension on that belt by moving the alternator and tightening it down. I've got a big screwdriver right there, and he's wedged under the alternator. So I'm going to use that to pry up on the alternator like so. And I know it's hard to see. Then I got a 1/2-inch wrench on a ratchet with a 1/2-inch socket on the bolt on the alternator. And so by pulling up on a screwdriver and tightening the belt, I'll then torque down that bolt on the alternator bracket, and we'll be good to go. I know seeing what I'm doing is next to impossible, so I'm trying to explain to you what I'm doing, and we'll see what happens. All right. Lifting up. Tightening bolt. I think that did it. Check again the tension. And I'm going to push down on that belt to make sure it's got the right tension. It does not feel to me overly tight, but I think it's tight enough. And what we can do is when we fire it up, we'll run it for a few minutes, shut it down, and check again. Now, the other thing that has to be in, I've got to tighten that pivot bolt on the alternator right down there. And as I had mentioned before, that's easier to access from the bottom. So let me do that. We'll put it back together, put our air cleaner pipes back on, and we should be good to go. Okay, well, we got it fired up and running, and everything looks and sounds great. And I feel good about having accomplished this project. When I turn it off again, I'll check the tension on that outer belt. But I think we're really good to go. And this is a happy maintenance project to get out of the way on this, 21, 22-year-old motor home. So that's it. I want to thank you for joining me on today's project. Learned a lot as we went along, and I hope it helps you on your do-it-yourself projects as well. Buck WSR Weezer, love to hear from you. Leave a comment, question. Have a great day, everyone, and we will talk to you again on our next video. Bye.